What's going on all you gamers? Today we're back with some more Elden Ring. What I'll be covering today is my Faith Fire Warrior build. It has a lot of damage, very endgame viable, and is a lot of fun to play. So if that interests you, then stay tuned. That's coming up next. Welcome back all you guys and girls, as always, for all things gaming, for all things Xbox, then why not hit that subscribe and bell icon. I'll bring you all the latest and greatest content, hints, tips, guides and builds, and just some fun gameplay and reviews of upcoming games. But for today I'm here to show you a build that I think is very fun to play, very tanky, very just durable all round, but does an absolute abundance of damage, and is able to take down anything in the game. Now what I'm going to do, just before I jump into all of the essentials, what's needed and why you want it, I'm going to chuck on a little bit of gameplay and just show you what it's all about. That way you'll be able to work out if it's the build for you. Right, so seeing a build in action always makes things a little bit easier, showing you how it works and if it's for you. The first thing you want to do, Flame Grant Me Strength, straight into Golden Vow and then into Blessing of the Erd Tree. With those three buffs you're now going to have a lot of damage reduction, and you're going to have some health regen. If you need to heal up, you might want to use a Great Heal as well, but I usually keep it on Great Heal after that just in case. Next, you're going to want to be very close range if you're trying to get the best out of your Magma Sword. It does a lot of area effects, a lot of damage, and is just an absolute beast at close range. However, this fella right here was resistant to pretty much everything, especially fire, so he did make things a bit tougher. If you're struggling at close range, you can always go medium distance with your Black Knife. This right here is one of the coolest looking weapons in the game. And can do things such as that, so sometimes you'll be able to dodge enemy attacks that are close to the ground because you're in the air. If you can get in close range, however, go back to your Magma Sword and you'll be able to do a lot of damage with that AoE. Also, if you can manage to pull a Burno Flame off, it will do a lot of damage over a wide area. Like I said, guaranteed damage will be the Black Knife and medium range. Close range you'll be switching straight to your Magma Sword. This will give you a bit of viability, especially if they're resistant to flame. As you saw there, the Black Knife's a lot better with precision as well, as we took the dragon down by hitting its head. Right, so hopefully from that you've worked out whether this is the style for you. I think this is probably my favourite build at the moment, and it's not even finished off. We can still put some points in if we're going very endgame or new game plus to make our damage even stronger. Now just so you know, I'm not going to be going over the locations for these. If you do need any individually, a lot will be on my channel. I find that if I try to put all of that into these videos, it makes them last a ridiculous amount of time, and most of the time you'd rather just see what the whole build's about. But going over to our equipment, the first spot goes straight to our Magma Blade. This just absolutely melts enemies like butter and is one of my favourite weapons in the game. It does a huge magma pool, as you probably saw in the gameplay, and that hurts enemies a lot. Also, because of your spinning attack, you'll be able to do it very often, meaning they're going to be in that and they'll be getting all of the extra damage as you go. For fire weapons, this is probably in one of the top spots for damage, and if you're close range, this can really do some significant numbers. As you can see, it scales off of physical and fire, which we're doing a fire build, so that works great, and the scaling strength, dexterity and faith, but we're mainly going to be speccing into strength and faith, unless you want to put dexterity somewhere further, much further down the line. Now the only time this will struggle is if something's got a high resistance to fire, and there definitely are a few enemies out there. However, I found with this build, with the right setup, you can still use it even on those because of how much damage it still generates. If however you are struggling and you don't want to be too close range, jumping straight over to the black knife, and this one I've still got to upgrade to 10 so it can do a little bit more damage. This right here is just, again, probably in my top few spots of best weapons in the game. This one has a really unique skill. This one scales off of physical and holy, meaning we've got a bit of slight variance in our damage, but works very well in conjunction to the playstyle we're going for. It scales again off of strength, dex and faith, mainly off of faith, which works perfect for us, and its skill has an FP cost of 25. However, I'd say this is one of the best skills in the game. When you shoot out that kind of dark arc at them, it's going to knock off a big bit of damage and take off a bit of their HP, which is guaranteed. Also, a great thing about both of these, they've got very low requirements. So this one's strength 8, dexterity 12 and faith 18. And this one is strength 9, dexterity 15 and faith 16. Very easy to put into a build. Between them, I think they're probably the perfect duo. This one's a very mid-range weapon that can really get you out of trouble, and this one right here is if you want to go in and cause some crazy devastation. Next up, to go hand in hand with a few of our spells, we've got the Giant Seal. This is going to make a couple of our fire spells go through the roof, as our incantations are going to be Giant's Flame incantations and mainly faith ones for healing. Next up, and we're going straight over to what we wear, and one of the main things I like about this character is just how cool he looks. I think this is probably my favourite one looks wise that I've put together so far. It just really looks the business. So we've got the Banished Knight's helmet, which has got an all around nice damage negation and resistances, but quite high heavy weight. But working in conjunction with that, we've got a clean rot armour set. So we've got the armour, gauntlets and greaves. All in all, making us have very good damage negation and some quite high resists. Now jumping over to our talismans, we've got a Radigan Soreseal on because it does help us to get a bit of our stats up. If you're very high level, say New Game Plus and such, and you're maybe over the 200 mark or something along that, you're going to take this off and chuck something else in its place. Very possibly something like a Ritual Sword Talisman, or maybe even the Carrion Filigreed Crest would work perfect as well in this build. But up until you've got very high level, this one is well worth putting on. Jumping over to the next one, and we've got the Dragon Crest Great Shield Talisman. The reason I'm putting this on is because it enormously boosts our physical damage negation. We want this because we're close range a lot of time with our Magma Blade. Without any kind of resist, without any kind of damage negation, we do tend to struggle and we do fall over. So we want to make ourselves as tanky as possible whilst being able to dish out those beats. Jumping over to the next one, and this one's down to your personal preference. If you like being really close range and using your Magma Blade, then you're going to chuck on the Fire Scorpion. It's going to raise our fire attacks, meaning that our spells do more damage, and meaning that our close range damage jumps through the roof with our Magma Sword. If however you'd rather be a little bit further back and you prefer the playstyle of the Black Knife, then you're just going to swap that one straight over to the Sacred Scorpion charm. Now remember, like I said, both of these two actually make it so you get hit harder. That's why we've got the Dragon Crest Great Shield Talisman on to kind of negate that a little bit and give us a more well-rounded build. Lastly, and a very late game item, this is the Shard of Alexander. You're gonna want to work your way towards this as it greatly boosts the attack power of your skills. This build is mainly about doing the damage with your skills, with a little bit of Fire Giant's incantations chucked in where we can fit them. But the bulk of our damage is probably going to come through our weapon arts. If however you haven't got this unlocked yet, you're a little bit earlier, chuck anything on that's going to make you do a bit of damage. Like I said, the Ritual Swords Talisman is perfect, and the Perfumer's Talisman can actually work very well as well. If you haven't got any of them, something that is actually quite fun to use as well is the Crimson Amber Medallion, and it's just going to put our maximum HP through the roof. Jumping over to the summons, and probably my favourite summons in the game is the Clean Rot Knight Finley. I've only got this to +5 as I've been mucking around with some other stuff, but you're going to want this as high as possible. If you haven't got this, a Mimic tier will work amazing, as will Black Knife Tiche. Those three I'd say are probably top notch in my books, and for endgame they're probably the ones you want to aim for. But the Clean Rot Knight Finley is going to do something we haven't already got in our build, meaning it's going to add that rot damage and really help us out, especially if you can get it up a lot higher than myself. Jumping over to our Flask of Wondrous Physic, And again, this one can be slightly changed to a variation, but I've got on it the Flame Shroud and Cracked Tier, which is going to temporarily boost our fire attack damage for that close range goodness, and the Crimson Spill Crystal Tier, which is going to temporarily raise our maximum health. Now this raises your health for a long time, and although I think not many people tend to use this, with a regen build it actually works really well, especially if you find yourself topping out at max health a lot, and also works hand in hand with that Ritual Talisman sword if you want to put it on. To show just how good this actually is, at endgame we've got 1900 HP over on the right there. Once I use this item, if I go straight back in, we've now got 2090. That's actually massive, almost 200 HP. Trying to get that through putting our Vigor up at this point is going to cost ridiculous amount of resources. So being able to get really high HP works perfect. And as you can see up the top there, we're near enough a boss in ourselves now. I really enjoy using this. It makes us very tanky, very survivable, and with a nice regen going on that we've got in our build, makes the playstyle just a lot of fun to use as you stay alive through the toughest situations. Now by no means least, if you've got all three of these are your get out of jail free cards. They are ridiculous. I've got a guide on these, so if you don't know what they are, honestly aim towards them. They're some of the strongest stuff in the game. These three aromatics, the Blood Boil aromatic, the Uplifting aromatic, and the Iron Jar aromatic, these are my I can't beat this boss in any situation, I can't work out his pattern, I've got to get past him, I make sure that I use these. The Blood Boil aromatic gives something like, I believe, in the range of about 40% extra physical damage, and makes you hit like a ridiculous truck. You just make everything fall over. If however you want this one instead, this one's going to boost yourself and any allies, so if you're working in a team or you're working solo it's going to work well, but it also reduces incoming damage once. Pretty much the same as if you put it in your Wondrous physic, it's going to put a bubble around yourself, meaning you can take that single hit. But even more powerful than that, this one right here, the Iron Jar aromatic, is just bar none the tankiest thing in the game. You're going to click this, it's going to boost all of your resistances, all of your damage negation. You're going to turn into a pretty much walking colossus as your whole skin turns into metal. The only downside, you are crazy slow, so against some bosses that are very fast, you're probably not going to want to use this, and you'll jump over to this one instead for a bit of berserker fun. But if you cannot beat a boss and you need to be really durable, this right here is probably the go-to choice in the game at the moment. Now we are constantly using FP in this build, so I would highly recommend having a lot more of the Cerulean than you do of the Crimson, because you're going to want to be able to pop these whenever you want in order to get your FP back. But don't forget, we've also got a lot of healing going on with our Incantations, meaning that even if we run out of our health ones, we're not usually in too much danger. Having a couple of these though does work out well. Like you saw, the big healing spell will take a bit of time to pull off, so if you're in a bit of a bind and need a heal fast, using your Flask of Crimson Tear still works out faster. So going over the Incantations, and like I showed in the gameplay footage, you're going to probably start off with your Flame Grant Me Strength. This is going to boost your physical damage and it's going to boost your fire affinity, meaning you'll do a lot more damage with your fire incantations and with the actual Magma Blade. Next up, Golden Vow is going to do the same thing. It's going to boost your attack power and it's going to boost your defense, making you able to survive encounters a lot better. Blessing of Virtue right here is going to mean you're able to do a lot of health regen. So if you're getting knocked about a bit, you need to move out of the way of danger, you need to run away for a little bit, and before you go back into battle, you're going to get some health regen going on, and it's going to make things a little bit easier about yourself, especially if you're not able to pull off any of those big heals. Next, you're going to have Great Heal, and that's just going to make things a lot easier for getting big chunks of your HP back. But like I said earlier, it does take a little while to kind of cast, so you are going to want to make sure you're in the right area before you try it, because if you're doing it in the face of a boss, there's a good chance they're going to hit you before you pull it off. Jumping over to Burno Flame, this one right here is going to do some massive area fire damage. Really handy in a lot of situations if there's a boss above you and you want to nuke it, or if there's just quite a few enemies around, then this can definitely be a go-to move, but again it does take a little while to cast, so just be mindful. And for that long range damage, if we don't want to be using our black knife, we could always make sure we've got the Giant's Flame Take Thee hitting something in the face, just a great spell for a lot of big damage, and it looks amazing as well. It's also one of the few that you can cast quite well without actually having auto aim on. So rather than toggling to them, if we do this, it goes really far and can be charged up. I find this one just a lot of fun to use if I want to hit something in the face from a distance. Be careful though, if you toggle on them, so you're clicking on them so it auto aims, sometimes it seems to fall a little bit flat, so it will miss them. So either auto aim closer or, like I said, aim manually. But yeah, a fully charged up one of those will definitely take off a few thousand health, and we've still got quite a ways to go in our build, meaning that if you are going to boost your level up ridiculously, if you're really enjoying the game, you'll be able to get even more damage out. So as you can see on the right hand side here, I'm 158 at the moment. I've got 60 in Vigor because I think late game you're going to want 60 Vigor, it just works perfect. Anything above that tends to fall off quite hard, so I probably wouldn't bother putting too much more in than that. Mind 27 allows us to use a bit of FP, we're very FP orientated. Endurance, we definitely need a bit of that. We've got some heavy gear on and we want to be able to roll every once in a while, so 27 was roundabout perfect. Dexterity, we've got a 19, we only need it at 15 to equip what we've got to equip, but because I've actually got the saw seal on over here, it's actually gone up a little bit. Intelligence, not a prerequisite whatsoever, don't chuck anything into that. Faith, you're going to want as high as possible. I've got on 56, if you can you're probably going to want to hit at least, you're going to want to hit around about 80 or maybe even higher if you just want a little bit of extra damage after that, but it will fall off a bit harder. And Arcane, not using it much in the slightest, don't worry about investing in that. But as you can see with Strength 45 and Faith 56, we've still got quite a ways to go before we max out our damage. But I'm at endgame and I've taken everything out quite nicely, and this gives us the overall kind of survivability, damage and just everything we need in order to have a lot of fun and get through all the encounters. Right gamers, hopefully that's helped a few of you guys and girls out. I've had a lot of fun doing this build and I'm definitely going to see if there's any ways I can make it a little bit stronger or tweak it a little bit. But as always, for all things gaming, for all things Xbox, take care. I'll see you on the next day.